My head hung over her casket. Eyes filled with tears of questions that were not worth asking. I looked at her stitched lips and her sealed eyes, and it was there that I realized that her face looked a lot like mine. Eyes that didn't give me the chance of a glance now closed, which probably told stories of my early childhood that no one would never know. Lips that will never part to console the hurting child in me by simply saying, son, I love you. And y'all, is something to look in the casket at the corpse of a woman that you never knew, but knowing that it's the same woman that birthed you, y'all, it's crazy. Because now I'm mourning the loss of my mother while waiting for the birth of my firstborn son. Simultaneously, it's like I was standing in the middle of a conversation between death and life, trying to see what they were saying to me. And before darkness could even feel the depths of my identity, desperately, I looked up at the preacher that was eulogizing the service, and I looked back within myself, and I got nervous because I was still trying to figure out my purpose for even being there. After all, I didn't even know the woman in the casket, and to be honest, I didn't even care because I had lived my whole life as a castaway, shipwrecked on an island, deserted on Mother's Day, cast into the sea and forgotten by loved ones like Tom Hanks. I was holding on to deflated dreams of I will, son. And now, I'm suddenly forced to adopt the identity of being identified as Stella's real son. And you see, they kept referring to me as her real son, like I didn't notice. Oh, so now I'm her real son, like my life before this was bogus. But, yo, we supposed to be focused on reconstructing a relationship that to me seems hopeless, so stop it. I never asked to be adopted. I never asked to feel unwanted or shift homes just because you sold me. Listen, I was 18 months old. Was it too much for me to ask for you to hold me? Was I too complicated for you to know me, tell me that you even feel connected to me? And why was the name on my birth certificate left empty? I see. You only give names to things that have meaning, things that are worth keeping. So am I mean for not grieving, or should we just pretend that the meaning of my life was just a means to an end? Is this what adoption is? Do you know how much pain your absence has left? Mom, your ghost has haunted me well before your death. Growing up, I felt like a mere shadow of myself, always walking in darkness, even when trying to be comforted by the light, wondering about the image that formed me, thinking, do we even look alike? Mom, I search for you harder than someone searching for shadows cast at midnight. And at midnight, Mom, I even search for you in my dreams. I would dream of happy reunions of a day that we would finally meet. I figured that we would bump into each other on the streets and we would look each other in the eyes, and there we would realize just how strong a mother and son's bond is. And I'll tell you about my past, but you will say, son, we can get beyond this. And I'll tell you about the many nights that I called you and how you never responded. How I called out for you in Morse code, with teardrops on cold floors, but it seemed that the dots and the dashes were too weak of a signal to reach you. So I became disruptive in school, hoping that I would become someone that you just couldn't ignore. I'm surprised you weren't shaking or moved, Mom. My emotions were explosive. They were louder than bombs. And yo, a spark of hope used to ignite every time the teacher would ask, "Do you need me to call your mom?" I was hoping that one day they would finally reach you. Those dreams have become nightmare. And those cold floors have become home, and that home has become swept clean and abandoned, windows and doors boarded, Mama, because I refuse to let anyone else in for the fear that they would hurt me again. And it took years. It took years, Mama. It took years for love to finally find me. To pull a nail out of wood just to allow a ray of sunlight to shine in, to pull boards off of hinges just to give faith and hope and interest. And listen, when Jesus finally found me, it took every word spoken for these lame legs to walk again, for this heart to beat again, for me to finally feel affection. God said, adoption is not for the rejected, but for the chosen. He said, you, son, are like Moses, the castaway who was cast into the river of the Nile, retrieved upstream by the daughter of the king, adopted and redeemed to set the captives free from the oppressor. And then he reminded me of Esther, the orphan, who, like Moses, proved that God is sovereign. He said, you are not forgotten, but yet you will call for this, so stand for righteousness, and if you perish, you perish. He told me to shoulder up my cross and to bear it, to take on the burden of freedom. He said, you think that you were the only one adopted. And then he reminded me of Jesus, the one who was adopted as a fetus, the one who saved, who gave us the spirit to emancipate us as slaves from within, evicting us from our home of sin so that we could fully enter in and worship the judge that declared our adoption and our sonship, into whom we all cry out, Abba, Father. But every now and then, Mama, I find myself kneeling back down on those cold floors, and those Morse code tears are flowing, Mama. But this time is to give God praise for never leaving me, nor forsaking me, but being a substitute, a stand-in. Even when I felt abandoned, he loved me. Even when I felt hated, he rose just to erase condemnation. I was a slave to sin, and I used my adoption for my heart to be hostile, but he made me a son and showed me that my adoption was the heart of the gospel. So, dear Mama, may you finally rest in peace, because your son has finally found